Hello everyone, welcome to my oil painting class, and today we continue to explore how to paint snow. So we have monochromatic, almost black and white photograph to work from today. I'm using a medium grey background primed, but I have got a big range of colors. Because I'd like us to focus today how we can introduce some vibrant color to paint snow. So we're going to end up with a little bit more exciting color than just tonal painting. So on my palette, I have some cool colors and some warm colors. So from the cool ones, I've got blue-gray, cerulean, ultramarine, emerald green. From the warm colors, I have Naples yellow, magenta, and violet. And of course, I've got some white and I've got some Payne's gray or any other black you might have. Last session, we were mixing some of the tones and colors. So this one was my tonal ladder from white to black. And we were looking at and kind of identifying that our Payne's gray has a little bit of blue in it. Then we were mixing some white with ultramarine, okay? And we were discovering for the snow that we probably don't need any more stronger blue to mix it further. And then we mixed white with black and blue together. So we have a little bit more of a blue side to the painting. So today we'll be using the same colors and adding a little extra more. So similar to what we've done with ultramarine, we can do with blue-gray, we can do with cerulean, we can do with emerald green, we can do perhaps a little bit more with magenta and black, perhaps with violet and black, but also violet can be used with our ultramarine and black as well. So we'll have that discussion about the colors afterwards. But let's start with a sketch for our painting. Also, just wanted to let you know that when we're taking photographs, for example, I've taken that one last year on one of the snowy days, and you can still adjust and amend composition a little bit here and there if you wanted to. So, for example, we have that beautiful tree, key tree in the center. And on my photograph, it actually was leaning the other way and it was a little bit smaller. So what I've done, I've photoshopped to cut that image off of the tree and then inserted it. I reversed it. So I tweaked it a bit. So if you see a little line, not quite perfect, if you were to look close, some of the trees not perfectly match, but that's absolutely fine. It's something we help ourselves when we're planning our work, when we're planning our composition, okay? So I'm going to start with using some tips for my sketch, and I'll use some ultramarine and some black, my Payne's gray. A dab of white or blue-gray will be fine, just to make it slightly lighter so we can see. So we can see a little bit of extra blue in the color, and it's quite a runny paint. I can just check it so I can see it well there. Okay. And let's look at the overall proportions, what's happening in our landscape. So we have some sort of hedge branch of the tree on a left top hand side, and we've got a big wall, probably again hedge covered by the snow, which divides our painting into two halves. Maybe the lower part will be slightly higher than halfway through. So if this is halfway through on my board, I need to go something a little bit higher and perhaps a little bit diagonally, perhaps even there. And then that line could go slightly lower. Okay. Maybe a tiny bit lower here. As we remember, we can wipe things off. And I quite like that edge coming. And where does it come? Is it coming all the way halfway through? Is it stopping before? Maybe way before, but reasonably close. Okay. So those are my two big elements on the painting. You can also decide how much flat white space, flat snow we have at the front. It also gives us a bit more directions for the hedge. Okay, so where does it start again? Maybe a little bit more close to the center of the painting. It looks like a tree trunk which been cut with some new shoots. So that's where probably it changes its direction. Okay. Now we see lots of details of how the snow settled on top of the branches, on top of the hedge, on top of all these lovely vegetation in front of us, which we can't see in details. So I want us to constantly think about big shapes before we start zooming in and looking for little nuances. So as I was talking about my key tree, my feature, my focal point tree, so maybe it's time to plan it. So again, I'm comparing my finding in the middle of my painting. So maybe my tree will need to go just a little bit off center. So if I roughly put the tree trunk for it, and I quite like how it's leaning a little bit on one side, almost like supporting some of these branches coming over, and that will be quite nice. Almost that little conversations going on there that come, they're connecting together. Tiny bit more paint for me. So let's just make this tree. It's almost leaning. They say very often the shapes of the trees remind us the shapes of the leaves these trees have. So if you think of the shape of a tree as a shape of a leaf, might be easier for us to draw it as well. So if the leaf vein is bending, maybe the tree trunk will be bending. Okay, we also have got two lovely trees on the right hand side. Again, maybe just we can plan them slightly perhaps small or less significant in darkness for some of them. Okay. I think to make my central tree slightly bigger, if I'll have a slightly bigger dip in my hedge, I think that will be better. Then the shape of the tree stands out a little more. As I can see, the height is good, but maybe its overall shape. Something's gonna happen there. Okay. Gonna keep my paint running so it's easier to work with it. Okay. And we also have got a darker shape of the woodland behind our tree. I might just paint it over so then I can see that darkness. And I quite like the idea of having my tree slightly darker so I can see the silhouette of it. It's perhaps a bit too dark than my final tree is going to be, but I prefer seeing a shape. Sometimes my lines are not perfect and I prefer seeing those shapes. Okay, that's better. Now I'll also gonna start making some adjustments and amendments to elements around here. So actually I think my hedge here has a little bit of a step and I think I'll bring this one down, and that allows me to drop my top branches and that part of that hedge slightly lower. That's better. Now I can have more space for the sky and the branches there. Okay. Okay, that's much better. See a bit more solid side to the hedge. Somewhere here, again, it allows us to balance our shapes. Something a bit more heavier, darker on this side. So I'm naturally already even separating a slightly darker tone to slightly lighter tone. But seeing those shapes helps me to maneuver, to move about my groupings of trees, of hedges, of shapes, silhouettes. Okay, I trust my me seeing the shapes better than I see the line. I can see a little bit of darkness here as well. I think that will be again a nice key shape of maybe a hedge we can see through. Same as here, we can see part of the hedge and the woods behind there. So by the time we put some snow here, we'll probably see some darkness of the woods there as well. I'll leave it blank for now so I'm not going to get confused. Okay. So in a way, what I'm aiming for, I'm looking for, there is a snow on top of one shape, let's say here on the left. So I have a block preparing for it to have something light, something dark underneath of it. I've got a block of something light going on top of my hedge. Can I follow it through a little? Yes, it probably just goes somewhere that way. It gets narrower and wider and narrower, and different elements of it, and something almost overhangs. Yeah, I can always put all how that hedge just to help me see those shapes a bit more. Something there. And everything underneath it will be slightly darker. We'll see something, some sort of darkness. Yeah, in some places more, in some places less. But that is our, just to help me to understand that form, I can almost draw it. Something similar happens above, but in a smaller volume, and it's just a little bit more broken. So again, a bit of snow at the top, a bit of a shadow below. Again, I could have just drawn those shapes. These lines are just for us to see, understand what's happening to the form. You don't need to keep them for longer. Once we clear that changes and straightens, and that snow almost comes flat here. Yeah, just gives us that clear understanding of what's happening. Maybe that snow will have more of a shallow angle, but that's not a big deal. By the time I start putting white, that's not going to be seen as much. Okay. And then to finish it off, we can do a tiny bit more shadows at the bottom. Again, if I'll just make a paler grays and just look into some of these shadows here. Almost just eat away some of the silhouettes. And that will be exciting, playful work with our brush. Something here, something there. How it will be all hanging. The snow will be. I'm more interested in the overall something below that area. Not overly panicking about how much details or is that going to be the precise shape. I'm looking out for it. That shape of the darker stump and some of the areas around it. Okay, that's good enough. So I have connected those shadows into almost like two rows. At the moment, they're more seen as rows. So when we start applying color, we can mingle it a little bit more so it doesn't look too precise. We will also show it via the tone. Okay, let's double check my shape of my tree branch here. Maybe they're the ones. Maybe they're the branches, maybe they're the brambles. Okay, that's will be quite good. Okay, so we've got more three-dimensional plan than just a line. The reason for it, we have a lot of white and we don't want to paint it flat. Right, so let's evaluate our colors a little. When we're painting with warm and cool colors, one group of colors should stay for the shadows and the other to create extra two-dimensional effects. We need to have a little bit of warmth. So it depends what decisions we're going to make. Let's say for the shadows, that's where that's the warm group will have to go on the light or vice versa. So let's just talk it through. I'm looking at some of these beautiful shadows of snow, and I'm definitely seeing there's some beautiful ultramarines and cooler tones, and so is for most of the shadows elsewhere. However, the tops of the snow still remain a little bit more in the shadow. So if I were to squint my eyes, all of the lower part of the painting looks darker, and perhaps the sky will be my lightest tone. So we're thinking of darkness, we're thinking of color at the same time. So I would like to go perhaps cooler shadows with blues and some cerulean blue, and perhaps and also ultramarine, where the it's not ultramarine, where the emerald green will play the role of slightly different warmth in comparison to my blues. So I'm going to introduce emerald green. It will appear more like turquoise, very, very pale, but it will become much more warm. And perhaps at the end, I'll touch up a little bit of Naples yellow with it. Okay. For the sky, I'm still thinking of going perhaps a gentle violet, but still probably mixed with ultramarine and even black, something there. But the trees at the back, I want them to stay much more warmer. So I'm thinking of magenta and violet for those shapes. So they will be offsetting our coolness at the front by presenting it a little bit more further away from us. Okay. So let's mix a couple of lighter snow colors using emerald green and using cerulean blue. Okay. So I'm just going to use a little bit of taupes because I'm going to use palette, just place some of my sample colors here. So if I'll go for some white and emerald green, okay, it's quite a strong color. But if I were to go much paler, okay, and I'll put it next to some of my blues here so I can compare it. Okay, that's more of a greenish look still. If I'll go dab lighter, okay, that's off-white, but I can just see a little bit of green in it. Okay. And my initial mix was slightly stronger, so very minor changes we'll need to see the change in color. We don't want bold emerald green, we want that subtle pigment on top of our white. So all our whites need to have that very gentle minimal change. Otherwise we'll have a rainbow forest and rainbow snow. Okay. Now if I were to mix my white with cerulean or any other lighter blues you might have, again, I'm interested to see how it will differ from very pale ultramarine. So I only made two or three colors, three colors from my emerald green. Now in diluted, well, in a very thick mixture of white, cerulean blue and emerald green close together, much close together, and only when we focus looking at the painting we can start spotting that variety. So on trained eye, somebody who doesn't mix colors or paints might not spot that. So on my screen it's harder to see that. In real life it's much sharper change of color, but I definitely can see that more sunnier blue than from white and ultramarine. That looks more of a shadows colors to me. That looks like much more sunlit tones. I also want to mix some white with some violet. Now, on its own, violet with a lot of white will start looking very much like pink, almost like magenta. Just going to place it here so we can start differentiating it. But I don't think I'll need as much of that boldness of violet in my painting. Okay, can't even see that first color because I'm now on the white palette. Okay, but I would like, as I mentioned, I would like to make a little hint of violet in my sky. So if I were to use violet and some ultramarine, it will start looking much more cooler. That's better. Can make it slightly lighter. Just trying to think how much lighter my sky will need to be. And it also has a hint of gray in it. So I want to mix it with Payne's Gray and see how it will change. But maybe we can get away without using gray. Or maybe we'll have to use it. Sometimes it's as it works on a palette, but it does not always work on our painting. So my other plan for the sky was violet, ultramarine, and a dab of black, just to neutralize that boldness of the color. We still see it's warm, warmish. Okay, I'll put it here. Okay, close, but it has got extra grayness to it. And once we start adding white, it has less color. Not huge difference from blue-gray, sorry, from violet and ultramarine on its own. Gray is going, so not massive change, but there is. Okay. And another color I want to put on my gray here next to my super pale emerald green and cerulean is Naples yellow. If I'll use a new brush and place some white first on my palette, a dab of Naples yellow. All I'm interested in from the yellow is to have an extra glow. Again, on the palette, on the sample here, we're probably not going to see it, but it will make our snow extra shiny and reflecting with extra bright light. So very small amount. I don't know if we can see it on the screen. Maybe just about. It just gives that extra glow. It plays with gives a lot of visual illusion from it. Okay. So I'm happy with my light colors. So these are going to be any of these, going to be part of my snow. Okay, mainly light tones. Some of my grays, bluey grays, possible, not violet ones, blue grays will be my shadows. Okay, so for the snow, violet and ultramarine, violet, ultramarine, and gray are going to be my sky. And let's just mix a couple of extra colors for shadows. Blue grays, absolutely fine for shadows, but I also want to add perhaps a dab of green or a dab of violet with my blue or with my black. So let's start with some emerald green. Okay. And some Payne's gray. Okay, on its own, I'm already seeing that might not be the color I want to go for. Perhaps a little bit somewhere where I can still see some of the darker leaves, but it's not dark enough, and it's perhaps too green. So that's why I'm mixing it to make those decisions. I'll use ultramarine with it. Keeps it slightly cooler. Okay, that's a bit better. But I love when emerald green works together with violet. Now, violet and ultramarine and black works for our sky, but also can do the darker version of that color, can also be part of our shadows. As it makes very dark color. So if I were to dilute it, I can see a bit of violet in it. If I add a little bit more white to it, I can see loads of grayish violet in that. But I will need a darker version of it. So just mixing it together. So that gives us an opportunity to range our color in the shadows. Okay, a little bit more into the green, a little bit more into the violet. And again, similar colors, mainly the violets, I'd love to use for our trees. Or anything else we can mix with a dab of Naples yellow and a dab of magenta to keep the colors slightly warm, warmer grays. That's a lovely color. Perhaps something for the trees. So they stand out in a different contrast. That pink within the color and warmth of the Naples yellow gives us a nice, exciting feel for it. If we add a dab more violet to it, we can have a slightly darker option there as well. So the changes are small. They're not huge jumps of range of various rainbow colors. They're small, and that's what we're interested in, to keep the overall tones of the painting working. Okay. So, I'd love to start with painting our sky, as that is one of the flattest areas in the painting. The light is still light below, no, close to the horizon, and it's darker at the top of the painting. So let's use our violet, ultramarine, and gray together. So now I can use my oils. So I'm just loading my brush with some oil first. And now I can mix my color starting from white. I'll need quite a bit of that color. It's got a reasonably big surface. Okay. We'll start with painting directly without oiling the surface for the sky, but for the other areas we'll increase the we'll wet the surface with the oil. Right, so white, violet, okay, a bit too dark perhaps. Ultramarine. Okay, I'm just going to mix it well together. I want to put a dab to see how much lighter it is, yeah. I actually thought it was reasonably dark color, but I think we're getting there already. So let's place this color close to my trees. I think my woods could go slightly lower. Okay, so is this one. Woods could go a tiny bit lower than I actually sketched them. Work around the shape of my tree here. I know the sky will need to be darker as I'm going up. Just wanted to find the silhouette of the tree a little bit more. Okay, something perhaps going around there. I also would love to drag this color a little bit more under the kind of under the branches here in the gaps, which we might still see a little extra light. And then I'm ready to increase the darkness of my sky. It's going to bring a little bit more ultramarine with my violet. Can paint over the branches, or if you like the shape, just give yourself a little hint of what it could be. I think I want a tiny bit more extra darkness for the top, so I'm going to use some Payne's Gray. By the time I mix my paints well, that should give me a good darkness. So I've got three tones within my sky. Yeah, before I blend them, you can just about see it here, the darkest, the medium, and the lightest. So then I want to interact them together so they're not so defined. Perhaps the top right corner could remain slightly darker, and perhaps the left corner could be gently lighter. I think then it will allow us to do some extra shadows and darknesses in the branches. So I mixed my colors, I applied my colors. Now I'm going to start looking if they're interacting well or if they're a bit too direct, and then I can start amending my tones. My colors are right, just checking that everything's comes through smoothly. There's no too sharp edges. Everything is organically interacts together. Okay. Trees, I need to go a tiny bit lower. Again, I can more likely I'm going to put the trees slightly more of the woodlands slightly higher, but I want to keep the peaks. I want to paint them on the fresh, lighter tone. So if you mix in your color and you end up with just fresh violet and white, that will be absolutely fine as well. If you'll end up with a little bit more fresh ultramarine in one of the strokes, which I'm about to introduce, I think that will benefit my sky. So I've got some pure colors here. They're so mingled up with others. They're not seen as a problem. Okay. Still feels tiny bit dark on my corner, or the top right corner. That might be better still. As we're applying more and more layers, paints become thicker and we need more, even more pigment to mix it well. Okay. Just gonna double check my strokes. Some of them are a bit too similar dabs. I want to have more shapes of skies rather than just a plain color coming through. That's better. That's better. Still tiny bit of light, of violet, even lighter perhaps for my corner here. Those decisions could be made later as well once we apply other cooler colors. Okay. So, right now, once the sky is done, we're ready to start painting our snow. I'm going to use a flat brush, medium to large scale. I'm just going to use the oil to paint, excuse me, all the lighter or medium darknesses for the snow. So all the big shadows I'm going to leave out for the moment. So let's paint all the whites, all lights, okay? Leave the sky as it is. So if things will start being a bit smudgy with your previous strokes sort of your drawing, don't worry about that. You can apply the oil quite runny, and you can apply the oil a little more kind of medium, so just wet surface, but it doesn't run any further. Sometimes it's harder to judge it, and you apply how it applies and work with what we've got. And that gives you, again, accidental, exciting opportunities. And now the reason I'm not applying it everywhere, because I want, first of all, to keep my shadows in place so I haven't lost them. Plus, they're small and in size, and the oil will run through them more likely anyway. But they will have a little stopper, will be little stoppers for us if we want to have some control as well. Okay. So we're preparing it. We're going to let it settle and we're going to let it run and kind of feel the weight. If you're painting on a flat surface, maybe raise it a little bit. If you're painting on 90 degrees easel, maybe less oil application so it doesn't constantly run and run. Or perhaps consider dropping it a little lower to see what the oil will do. Right, and now we painted that. I'd love us to go with a darker color for our shadows. So the colors we mixed, ultramarine and black, violet and ultramarine and black, a dab of green into that. Anything goes. And I want to increase the current darkness on my painting. So I'm going for emerald green and violet to make it super dark. Still a bit of white if we wanted to see a bit of color. So mine is looking bluish. And let's just bring it quite runny. I wanted a runny but thicker paint. So a little extra green somewhere we were talking about. Green, violet. Perhaps we still see a little bit of leaves here. So I'm just going to leave quite chunky, runny darks. Perhaps draw some of the branches or something we might see underneath. I'm going to exaggerate how much of that dark I'm going to bring, because by the time I paint snow on top, it's probably going to hide half of it. So a little bit more charged up with darkness. Not too worried about small branches. Anything more larger in shape. There's something there. Little of these dabs of darkness. So if with the sky we were painting a little bit more slow, a bit more precise, and we'll work maybe a little bit more gentle and careful with the snow. Now we can really relax and let that oil have beautiful contrast. You can also find some extra darks in our shadows. Okay, this is quite nice and big. I'm moving into the violet now. Violet and Payne's gray. I can move into violet and ultramarine. So just as you slowly, every time you top up the color, just gently move into another color. Pressing with my brush as I'm doing my stroke, so the paint and the liquid oil, excuse me, will remain on the painting, and I'm interested to see how it will start running with my earlier oil layer. Or maybe we'll stay still. Both are good. Here, maybe a little too regular shapes here, but perhaps I'll change it as my white comes in. And let's see if I can increase some of the shadows here. Again, I'm looking for patterns of light and dark. Don't be scared if things come up in the wrong places. just experiment and move about shapes. You can see a couple of rows of snow here before all the branches will come up. I think these branches I'll have to paint later. Something's happening. Okay. Maybe I'll just try a couple of those branches now. I'm talking myself into it. At least if I do cover them, that's okay. Again, I prefer to go for more color than black, so I have quite a bit of violet here, a bit of blue. Okay. Something a little extra exaggerated. Not any of the other branches I was talking about. I've got two white branches on a flat surface here. I haven't decided if I want to do them or if we'll need them. Perhaps, again, something to think about, but I don't quite like that at the moment. Okay. Okay, I think that will be enough. So now we have a light tone for the sky, got medium tone for snow, got our darks. Let's work in between tones of the painting. Let's come back to the trees now. And we decided to go for violet and Naples yellow and magenta. So maybe those two together and then a little bit of extra violet. Plus we've got already some color on our palette, on our painting already there. So if I were to load my brush with some Naples yellow, some magenta, okay, it's making it mix well. And if I were to try to apply it on top of my already gray trees, I'm going to start with my side tree. So if I don't like it, at least it's my experimental tree. It's not my central one, and I can wipe it off. I want to place some lighter tones, perhaps to see some of the sky behind it, but without making it too pale. So it looks quite patchy and quite pale to what I probably eventually need. But I think that's good. I want to see how my colors mix on top of gray. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to carry on with the same color, maybe a little bit more intensity of magenta and yellow. I want to make my tree next to it at the end looking lighter. But so far, I just want to get rid of the gray and mix it with these colors. Okay. So a bit of warmth going on there. Makes it looking a little bit more brownish. Okay. Careful not to make it too pink or overly yellow. We just want that haze of branches and haze of color. Okay, now I'm happy with that. I can see that I can make my first tree slightly cooler. So if I'll go with a dab of violet, or dab of Payne's gray, I can just enlarge that darkness. Just using side strokes, not painting kind of with holding the brush on the top, so then my strokes are less perfect. They're more of a side smudges there. Okay, I can decide if I want to make that tree a bit taller or a little bit lower. I think maybe a little lower. I'm going to go with a trust of perhaps this tree might need more touching up, but at this stage I'm gonna have to let it be. What I can do a tiny bit of darker tree trunks for the tree next to it, and perhaps a little smudge of them so they're not perfect. And I can make a slightly darker tree trunk or tree trunks for this tree as well. Don't want it huge jump, don't want it jumping out at us. That's why I'm softening it. Okay, I've lost it now. There's something in between which maybe doesn't need softening, but just can remain there. Okay, maybe I'll just have to let it be for the moment. Right, I want to bring similar color to my main tree. Perhaps the lower part of the tree will have more of that magenta and Naples yellow. And perhaps I'll keep some of that cooler gray for the tip of the tree. I can now paint over my white to get the shape back. Okay. And I'm coming now to the edges of my the dark edges of the tree, and by smudging tiny bit of paint from the sky, it lightens it up. Okay, so I can see more a softer silhouette of the tree. We'll see how those white gaps will work. And I'm ready for the woodland at the back. Now here we can just try perhaps Naples yellow and just violet, just to change the color gently if we can. I want it to stand out more. I want it maybe perhaps less pink, more browny or violet. Okay, if it ends up quite similar, maybe add some more Payne's Gray to it, but lighter version of it. So by adding a bit of white and violet. I'm going to drag that color across under my branches here in that little window. Okay, I can't quite see as much of my darkness of the trees, of the wood, so I think that needs darkening. This might make my tree to stand out a little more. You can also create a slightly darker border for the snow on the hedge. So doing both, thinking of the trees at the back and thinking of the downs close by. Okay, that's looking better. I can change it to slightly more blue tone with ultramarine. So that's where my small changes of color could come in into the play. Okay, my sky keeps bringing when I'm placing a darker tone over the sky. Keeps my tree slightly lighter, so I'm working into that. Okay, something light in the middle of that woodland. That's looking good. Now I just need to shape this branch again back. As I'm painting my tree against the silhouette of the woodland rather than against the sky, I think wood looks better for me being taller. I need to work out my tree. Maybe a darker tree trunk with its branches. Okay, looks a bit abrupt. So a bit back to color of the sky to get some spaces. Okay. At any point, if it's too much paint going on, if there's too much details going on, don't be scared of simplifying just by shading, kind of mixing the colors together. Might just do all that together here. Leave it as a shape for now. Maybe even leave a lighter tree trunk. I think that's works even probably better for me. The other trees or the shapes of going on. I might have to come back to it. Okay. It's quite smudgy here. And work to that variety a little more. Right, I don't like it again. And I'm going to stop at that for the moment with my trees. I like it as a big shape. I like its overall colors. I think I'm digging too much into my little nuances. And let's focus on something else and I'll come back to it. That's going to be my decision. I think to give myself a little bit more help with my center tree, because it's going to be my focal point, I don't want to leave it too late. If I go for fresh oil and just introduce some strokes of fresh oil on my tree, the oil will start eating away the paint. So when I'm ready, I might just place lighter strokes and get that shape worked into. Okay. Let me just take some of that darkness of it in preparation. Even like that looks already better. Too much paint I was getting into. Okay. Again, I'll just put back some oil there and just let it be there for the moment. Right. Now some of the darks run beautifully for us, and we're ready to work with them with the snow. I'm going to use now a medium brush. I'm going to start with some of the shadows of our snow settling, which settled on different surfaces. So let's start with some ultramarine. I'm going to go for white ultramarine. I'm looking for the darkness, as dark as my board or darker, probably a bit darker. Probably the light of the snow will be close or just a dab lighter than my gray, but the shadows will need to go darker. So again, if I'll place it as a sample somewhere in a painting, that looks too light for me. Blue on its own might be too strong. So if I add a dab of Payne's Gray, that will be good. So Payne's Gray, so we're in kind of in that category of colors. Little exaggeration of ultramarine, never going to be too much. Right, so I'm going to start with some of the shadows of the snow right here. This branch, this part of the hedge is against the light. We almost can't see any light in it, so quite confidently can go and paint most of it here. Okay, I'm going to try to place strokes imitating the little hoops of round shapes, how it might have settled, especially in the top and at lower parts of the shapes. So for example, another one, maybe another roundish shape somewhere here. Maybe I'll put a bit of snow over some of these branches which were going down, so it will break that light. A lob of snow there. Okay, I'm gonna keep topping up my color because I'm smudging into some darks and I might end up with much more darker color and less blue color. Okay, maybe something a little bit more here. Again, I'll do a stroke or two. I'll load my brush with some fresh blue. Okay, maybe a nice shadow somewhere here, maybe even darker version of it. Might even add a dab of violet for it here. Okay. Quite like that violet ultramarine for the dark shadows right here. Need to be careful so my brush is loaded evenly, so I don't have my strokes don't have different outline on them. I think that's how I loaded my brush, so I need to top it up. Okay, so the color comes a little bit more evenly. Okay, now I need more ultramarine. Okay. And let's have some more white. Fresh ultramarine, back to that exciting blue. And perhaps a small dab of back to Payne's grey. Just check that I have enough darkness in it as I'm mixing the color again. Right, and I'm ready to work into the shadows with my hair. Again, bigger scoops of strokes to show the snow. Certainly now, if we have thick enough paint, we can just place the strokes into the oily surface of darks and into the oily surface we created. And that will be exciting to see. So we need to make sure that that is a thick, much thicker paint than the current surface. Okay. My filbert brush is helping me a lot because it has a round end and it allows me to keep those strokes much more curved. Okay, I picked up a little bit too much black by accident. Okay, maybe the border here will have more of the shadows. Okay, that's good. That's where the runny oils really support my strokes. I think I've got more oily surface in this central part of the painting. It almost creates these outlines of dark, which is quite exciting. Okay, anything else here? Oops, that's enough for now. We can top it up if we need as we build up our light. I think that's maybe a little light, but perhaps it will settle by the time we add other colors. Okay. Any snow on any branches? Have I missed anything here? I think that's good work. Nice. I think some of the runny lines might give me an opportunity to draw some of the branches. I lost quite a lot of branches here, which I'd drawn with a darker tone, which is absolutely fine as well. Sometimes they just the idea of how we can work with the color. Right, well, I forgotten to put some snow on top of my top branches here, so maybe a little bit of that gonna go over. Now I might put fresh ultramarine here because the color stands out against the sky. So fresh color might be good here as well. Okay, place it as chunks as things settle. Maybe heavier for some of the tops even. Maybe to show that pattern of movement on the branches. Okay, maybe a little bit more than I wanted, but I think it's worked so far. Okay. And let's add some lighter tone. Right, so for the light tones, I'm going to mix white and emerald green. And I will gently add cerulean once I've done most of my emerald green and white. And at the last stages, I'll add Naples yellow. So I'm planning it ahead, but I'm going for one color at a time. I think my white is running out. But this is the paler emerald green I want. Okay. Just making sure that there is no other colors or uneven paint in my palette. And then I'll go for the scooping strokes. So let's start from the top here. Okay, a bit too pale, right? A bit more darker. So tried it, didn't work. That will be way too green. Yep. Okay, so more white, and maybe I'll mix it with cerulean now. If it looks too green, a little more white. And a dab of cerulean. Okay, some more white. I'm not getting enough of that. Okay, let's try that one now. Okay, that's better. So, as the snow settles in, and again, I'll be topping up my brush quite a lot. So I'm not smudging anything yet. I haven't made a nice soft change from one color, from one darkness to another. So far, I just want to place the most light tone. Okay. Stroke or two at a time before topping it up. Okay, that might be stretching out for some other branches to get more light. It's a little more light in here. Constantly keep mixing and checking that I have clean color. I can do a little bit of dabs of light coming through. Okay, a little more extra light somewhere here. And I'm going to put quite a bit of pale corner on the flat snow here as well, ready for it to be mingled with my cerulean. Okay, that's good. Right, now I'm going to move to slightly smaller brush, and I'll use again fresh white with now cerulean. So at the moment I can see here in my palette which color I've used now, and it's my new color is the same darkness. I need it slightly darker so we can start blending it with our shadows. Okay, so that's a darker color, but much more close to ultramarine now. So I'm going to just get almost like a border. The colors will be mixing on the painting. The emerald green, the most light color, will be mingling with the new color, and it's also will start getting interaction with the darker shadowy colors. The tricky part here is that we could start having too much smudging and lifting up too much darker color. So be careful, sometimes just placing it gently, a little stroke at a time is enough, or persevering with a particular shape. So it's, for example, I just made it mucky. I'm just going to persevere by putting more strokes in the same area, kind of reinforcing my initial clearer stroke, clearer in color. Okay, that's better now. And let's put a little bit of extra light now here. Make it a little cleaner. I'll try not to make it too pristine clean, because we want natural marks to be present. So sometimes I might have to almost like outline some of the shapes where I haven't got any light, a little bit more in the shadow. So just gently touching them up and maybe stopping. Okay, I can wipe my brush and use drier bristles to bring that color together, to blend it gently. So if I want to have a smaller, gentler effect, if I want a bit more contrast, then we can have thicker strokes. Okay, just want that softness as well there. Okay, back to blue. I can start looking if the snow is sliding down or is it still lying flat. And that's where my interpretation of the shapes comes in. Yeah. Good. Right, let's find some of these shapes. Sometimes all we need is almost like a highlight of the ceruleum. It just makes the colors sing quite excitingly here. Okay, that's good. Maybe this will be a bit cooler and darker. If some of my areas lose the light, means that I can come back with some fresher, again, emerald green, or maybe even leave it for later when I start using Naples yellow. That might be just a little touch. So just go with the flow of your strokes, go with existing shapes, see if certain light can continue, or just continue just smudging blending your lights with a bit more darks. Okay, that's quite good. Allow yourself a moment to stop, squint your eyes and see what's actually happening on the painting. Okay, I'm quite happy in this area now. I need to start thinking about my central tree and how I'm going to deal with it. Let's have a look what's happening here as well. There are some branches with some snow. If we wanted to come back to those branches here we were sketching earlier, might just sketch them as they are by dragging the color, might be enough without adding too strong dark branches. I might just smudge the color to drag whatever we have in this area, just tiny bit more darkness altogether. So if it's a shadow, so I'll have more connection to the tree. That's snow settled. That's better. So it's a better do more vague overlaps of colors rather than start looking for individual branches. Prefer more spontaneous approach. A little extra fresh white, I think, will add enough texture for these branches. So that's good. As it is for now. Let's have a look at any more texture here. Or simplification of some of the shapes. It's a busy shadow. Yeah, that's much more natural looking one. Okay, building it up. It's going slowly. Well, I might bring some of that snow maybe to my tree at the back, and maybe I'll use that snow and frost effect on my tree. I think that looks better on it. That looks nice as well. There's some extra depth as well by doing that. Okay, I'm happy with that. Right, and let's work tiny bit more at the front for some nuances of my branches. Just see if anything need darkening, or maybe working over, or just adding some extra textures or full stops. Okay, that's too dark. So to fix it, I perhaps need to go with something light over it, like imitating frost or snow. Finding some support for some other shapes here. So now I'm not looking much on my photograph, mainly looking at my painting, finding those elements which might need to unite the painting by, for example, bringing some extra light, that emerald green a bit more. want the clone shapes. Okay, that's exciting again. So these blobs could stay more full of snow. Okay, some of my top lights are not light enough. For example, I've overpainted emerald green and it became more of a dirty color or less light than we expected earlier. So touching that up is good. Even before I put my Naples yellow. It's almost just cleaning it up in advance. Okay, anything here? Is it too busy here? Can I summarize anything here with extra light? By placing the brush into all that chunk of paint and then just scooping it all a bit more together, almost like spreading bristles and mopping it up. I can see some nice little darks there. I can also see some more potential ultramarine still on my branches. And then I'll touch it up with Naples yellow. Okay, I think that's a little more calmer here. Right, so I need some fresh white. I need some fresh Naples yellow. And I need a clean brush as well. So if I mix quite thick paint, probably without any oil. Okay, just doing an off yellow. There's a glow of it, but it's not huge amount of it in my white. And let's make some key points. So if my center is more important to me, the focus, let's just place a few of these strokes quite thick. So I've done a stroke, almost run out of my color. So any flat surface facing the sky more directly. Let's put a group of those strokes. Some of the paint is very thick here, so I need to persevere with placing my white and yellow together. Rather than rubbing it in. Let's do some narrow strokes just to show the border of those hoops of snow with almost highlight. If you need to, just keep wiping your brush. You can pick up still that color from your cloth, but you have to feel the control on your brush. Okay, maybe some small strokes here. Maybe a little more, something lit up. Constantly checking that I have got a fresh color. Every time I don't, I see it on the painting. We're almost there. Just gentle, gentle light is coming in. Again, I need to step away and see the whole piece together. I think I'll put a little bit more of that golden white somewhere here on the flat surface. Just want to show the angle it's on, and I want to blend it so the light is coming through here. Perhaps not as bold as on the higher areas. That's exciting. I think if I'll have little dabs of light on my branches as well. It's almost like last little catches of them, that glistening surface, and then we can stop. Yeah. I will look more into my central tree, and I think with a small brush and some running oil, I'd like to still introduce something similar to what we've done in the darks, and perhaps even use a bit of scratching if you want to create extra branches overlapping, just a little more kind of playfulness and less perfection over some of the areas. Maybe where it's something like that. Yeah, and I'll be stopping. So thank you very much for painting with me today. I hope it's given you a little bit more insight of how tones and a little extra color for the white can give us much more richer surface and much more exciting surface for the painting. Thank you very much for today, and I look forward to seeing your finished paintings.